I'm going to talk about this feeling of I need to do more as a business owner, and this feeling of being able to switch off or not in the evenings and feeling like, yeah, I did what I needed to do today, and so my mind is clear and I feel at peace. I don't know about you, but that is there's always the feeling of more to do. There's always that feeling of, like, if I don't do it, obviously no one else will because I'm working on my own. And like, the buck does stop with us. So I'm going to speak into how to manage those feelings that arise. My name is Ciara Britton and I'm a holistic business coach in Ireland, and I've written this as a blog. It's also on my website. But okay, here we go. So the main thing to be aware of, first of all, is that when you were traditionally employed, you had a boss, you had colleagues, there were external expectations of you. There was an expectation for you to be at work at a certain time. You had specific tasks to perform, and basically, yeah, all of the decisions were kind of out of your hands. A lot of them were out of your hands. And now that you're self-employed, you basically have none of those structures to hold you, or to kind of, there's no structures, and this is why we love, being our own boss and all of that. And I'm going to speak into what some of the challenges are with having all of this freedom as well. What's happening then, I suppose, in us being self-employed is that rather than having an external boss and us being the employee, we have both of those inside ourselves. So we are our own boss and we are our own employee. So what I've noticed is there's nearly this conflict within myself between what I should do, that judgment, that boss is having a fight with the employee, me, who's also saying, I'm really tired, I'm really overwhelmed, I actually don't know what to do next, I'm lost, this thing happened and it's after throwing me, and all the other stuff that's going on. So there's this kind of internal battle that somehow I need to manage within myself, of this boss and employee having a drama, basically. I'm looking down here at my notes. So yeah, when I started out as being self-employed, I was delighted for the freedom of my time, and I basically, I'd previously been a primary school teacher, which is the most structured, most, obviously at a timetable. You're literally watching the clock all day with, I need to, 5 minutes before this time, I need to get the kids to get their coats on. Like, you're aware of time all the time. And then when I didn't, when I stepped out of that, I was like, what? Freedom of time. And then what actually happened though was, like, there was some days when I was like really in the zone, and I was really in flow, and really like would do 12 hours of really concentrated work in flow, and I nearly forget to eat, I was so into it. And then the next day I'd be exhausted, I'd be actually spent, and I'd be like sitting looking into space because I had nothing left. And on those days I'd feel really guilty and really like I was failing and like unproductive, and all my self-talk was really bad. I was always trying to get myself to do stuff, but I was exhausted. I only obviously noticed the pattern afterwards. So once I started to kind of observe this pattern in myself of workloads and then have nothing left, I started to kind of realize that, like, it doesn't really, for me, it wasn't feeling very good. It was feeling like a real roller coaster, and I wasn't feeling very safe in my business, because there was stuff that I needed to get done every week that wasn't getting done, because sometimes I'd be just wrecked, and or else sometimes I'd be completely in flow and I didn't want to do the kind of mundane things. So I wasn't really being a very good employee to myself, and it wasn't making me feel very safe, basically. And that's something that's important for me, because as a business owner, because I feel like it's part of self-care and being able to feel calm and, secure in what you're doing. So I went from that extreme of complete freedom, into reflecting on what I actually did like in employment, and the aspects of the routine and how they actually did benefit me. If it's like I nearly threw them all out the window, and then started looking out the window and thinking, oh, I think I'm going to take some of those aspects back into my life. So the first thing I kind of, what the routine for school used to be, drive to school, listen to my audiobook. I had my tea break at 11, I had my lunch at 12:30. I had good habits as well in school. So I used to always write my list for the next day before I'd leave school. I always left my desk tidy when I left it, because it was like a ritual of closing off. I always after 2 years of teaching, I used to bring home work. I used to leave school like everyone else and bring home, my big basket of work, and it would sit there on my desk at home, waiting for me to do it in the evenings, waiting for me to do it at the weekends. And what normally just happened was I'd just carry it back to school the next day and not do it. I'd do it after school, but the damage was done. I had already spent that evening or that weekend feeling guilty, and it was hanging over me. So I just made a decision after 2 years of teaching. I was like, I am just going to do schoolwork in school, and then when I drive and leave school, I am finished. I'm done. So so that was another habit that worked for me. Everyone has their own habits, different for everyone. But what really helped me was, I used to stay for 2 hours every day after school and just do whatever I needed to do. Like my 2-week plan for lesson plans, I used to do the Thursday before and the Wednesday before it, so I had really good habits. So, and what they resulted in, and structure and discipline, I suppose, and discipline doesn't come easy, but what they resulted in was when I drove away from school, my mind was clear. I knew work was, I literally never thought of school outside of school. Sometimes you think of kids or whatever, but if you were worrying about things, but I wasn't thinking about work because I did it at work. So I decided to reflect on those and decide which parts of those to bring into my self-employed life. And these are some of the things that I've done, and I'm sharing them that you might get inspiration and take good habits or things that worked for you in your employed life and start to bring them into your self-employed life. Getting my tea. So the first thing I've done is I've decided my expectations of myself in self-employment in terms of how many hours I want to work a day and the parameters of when I start and when I finish. The reason for this, and I think it's one of the best things really, because otherwise you're doing a job that's not defined. It has no clear boundaries or rules, and so you feel like you should be doing it all the time. So it's like, by making the expectations, I've created, well, this is what the job is, the job description is, so I do the job. I've kind of defined the role for my inner employee. And what the rules are is that I usually, I start at 10 a.m. at the latest, it might be 9, and I usually book either a focus mate session at 10 a.m. I've made another video about that, it's amazing, a co-working website, or else I'll have a client session for 10 a.m. So whatever happens, I'm starting work at 10 a.m. And then I've said to myself, about 6 hours of really concentrated, focused time working a day is a good amount. My personal challenge is actually doing too much. So usually it's like 8 hours of really focused kind of work that I do, and I feel, but that's my upper, I want to keep it so that there's kind of a bracket. And then if there's some days when, for whatever reason, other stuff needs to happen, that whatever reason, some days I might have said, I'm going to do 6 hours, and I might only do 4, and then the other day I've said I'm going to do 6 and I might do 8, that kind of way. So it's flexibility within the structure. My inner boss gets a bit of a say in it, and my inner employee as well. Then the other thing for me is setting the evening limit. I know everyone goes on about morning routines, but I don't know why anyone doesn't talk about evening routines, because I think transitioning out of work is just as important, really. And what I've started to do is kind of schedule either going for a walk with one of my friends, or you know, ringing someone on a walk, or else, you know, maybe meditating with one of my friends remotely, we'll say it, but something happens at 7 o'clock most days. And that is really good because it's an appointment that I need to keep. And before I transition out of work, I will clean my desk, write my list for the next day, and, you know, close off work mentally and physically. So those are kind of some of my habits that I have started to do to manage this kind of feeling that now basically the whole point is that the feeling of I should be doing more, I'm not doing enough, feeling guilty, or else working loads and then getting to the point of having days when you're flat out exhausted, kind of thing. There's a steadiness when I've got things defined, and there is, because I've got that kind of structure, it feels like a container that holds my freedom. So I'm really free within that space. So I'm not like, I have to do this on a Monday, I have to do this on a Tuesday. I have some things that are pinned into certain days, but I have loads of other things that can move around. And I like that because there is the variety, but there's also clear definitions of what's time on in work and time off work, which is something that I definitely didn't have for the first 2 years of being self-employed. I always was having that feeling of like, I should be doing more. It's like the Leaving Cert hanging over you. Do you remember when you finished the Leaving Cert exams and you just felt relief to not have that thing hanging over you anymore? I wasn't up for having my business hanging over me all day, every day. So I'm just glancing back down at my blog now. That is it. Oh, the final part is just to say that this comes up so much with clients, and this, in hearing what they share, has made me has been restorative for me to know that I'm not the only one that kind of has these challenges around self-management, energy management and things like that. And it's funny because people don't come to me for that, and they come to kind of do the more glamorous things, and what it ends up is like their routine, structure, habits, all these things are actually the foundations, or the vehicle, or kind of, yeah, they're the means by which you will get all of your amazing things done in your business. But you won't be able to get them done if you actually can't get yourself to do them, if you can't have that relationship between your inner manager and your inner employee. So that's enough. That's enough for me. I'll finish my tea, and if this is on YouTube, then I have to say like, subscribe. I need to get 100 subscribers, because then you can change your URL for YouTube. That would be great. Thank you.